Every time I look at this bottle opener, I see an old man sitting outside an ATM in Jamaica. We all know this guy. He's the guy selling souvenirs right outside the ATM machine because once you've just taken cash out of the machine, it's pretty hard to walk past him and say, sorry, I don't have any money. Welcome back to this week's episode of Jamaica Made Me Do It. I am Christy. So a little while ago, I was cleaning out my car and I found this little bottle opener buried in the glove compartment. Here's the thing, I don't drink beer, and I definitely don't drink beer in my car, and it's not like I'm ever going to get flagged down on the side of the highway by a stranger who says, excuse me, do you happen to have a bottle opener? Like, can you open my beer? So why on earth have I kept this thing for all these years? Well, it's because every time I see it, it kind of brings me back to the exact same time and place where I purchased it many years ago in Jamaica. It is the most generic souvenir anyone can buy, and for sure it wasn't even made in Jamaica. It was probably made in Taiwan. I bought this trinket from an old man who was sitting outside an ATM machine just off the main highway near Runaway Bay. So if you've spent much time in Jamaica, you probably know the exact ATM I'm talking about. Tourists stop there all the time on their way in between Montego Bay and Ocho Rios. So it's a pretty strategic place to sell souvenirs, I would say anyways. It annoys me though when vendors sit outside of ATM machines, because then it creates an expectation. Like, I couldn't exactly tell him I have no money walking out of a bank. And when I went in, I knew he would still be there when I came out with a wad of cash in my wallet. So smart guy, but annoying. Of course, it's my choice whether or not I spend money or give it away, but it puts me in the uncomfortable position of having to say no. However, this old man, he was pretty sweet, and I felt extra kind that day. So I walked over to take a look at his wares, look at what he was selling. He had it spread out on the ground on a blanket, and none of it was new or useful to me, a person who's been to Jamaica 36 times. But I felt like I could inject a little bit of hope or a bright spot in his day. So I picked out the one thing that, in hindsight, it was the most useless item in my personal stash of trinkets, and asked him how much for it. He said 10 US dollars, which is, at the time, it was about 1,000 Jamaican. And at first I laughed and I said, there's no way a little bottle opener is worth $1,000. So I offered him 500 and he accepted. Surprisingly, he said, okay. So I handed him the 1,000 and then I told him to keep the change. Because the moment that I knew he was willing to meet me halfway, I decided to just be nice and give him his full asking price anyways. And his eyes lit up and the biggest smile stretched across his face. And that alone kind of made it worth it to me. It made my day, honestly. And listen, I need a bottle opener like I need a hole in my head. But it wasn't really about the bottle opener anymore. It was about a fellow human being just feeling seen, feeling like today might be a little bit better than yesterday. As I walked back to my car after buying it, he called after me and he was like, thank you, miss. Something really good will happen to you today. I don't even recall whether anything good did happen the rest of that day, but it didn't matter really. I was just happy that he was happy, and maybe that was the good thing. Maybe that was the good part of the day. I have still never used this bottle opener. Not once has it fulfilled its destiny of opening a single bottle. But here it sits with me as a reminder of how beautiful the human spirit can be if we just choose to look for it. Now, on the flip side though, while we're on the topic of feeling seen, there's a total other side to it as well. There were so many times when I felt invisible in Jamaica, which is odd because as a whitey, I automatically stand out, generally speaking. But here are a couple examples of feeling totally invisible as a whitey in Jamaica. So when I got my first apartment there, back in those days, you had to go line up at a manual bill payment center to pay your JPS bill. That's your electricity bill. And the very first time that I went to do that, it was at a really big kind of central place in Exchange, St. Mary. It was a gas station, a store, a bill payment center. So it was a big spot. And I went there and I lined up in the line to pay my bill. And I think there was like 3 or 4 Jamaicans in front of me and then me. And then soon another Jamaican walked in and walked up to the line and stepped right in front of me and just stood there waiting to pay his bill. And I didn't say anything because I was the foreigner and I really don't love confrontation at all. So I just kept my mouth shut and let it happen. And then a few minutes later, another Jamaican walks in and walks up to the bill payment line, goes in front of me. And I was like, come on now. And so I just felt so invisible. And then a third Jamaican walked in and he had a stack of bills like this thick, and he had a roll, like a wad of money to pay these bills. And in my head, I was like, there is no way I'm letting this guy in front of me because it's gonna take forever. And like paying bills, you know, lineups in Jamaica already take forever. So he stepped in front of me as I suspected, and I just tapped him on the shoulder and I was like, excuse me, sir, I'm in this line too, and I'm paying a bill just like everybody else. The only thing that I could think of was that maybe none of them expected a white lady to be standing in the bill payment line. Like maybe they just thought that I was there using the store, like picking up something in the store. I don't really know what it was, but it felt very off-putting. And I remember feeling very unseen, invisible that day. So it was interesting. And now I want to tell you about one more flip side, because there was also one man in the Ocho Rios area who was so kind, and I felt so seen by him almost every single day. He was physically disabled, and I can't remember if he sat on a chair or in a wheelchair, but he sat right in the divider in the middle of both lanes of traffic, and he was selling the Jamaica Gleaner all the time. And he was always in the same spot. Every time I drove through the town, I saw this man, and he was set up right at the red light. So often I would be sitting at the red light. And so if I saw him right beside my car, I would roll down my window and say good day or good morning. And he was so kind all the time. And I think the first or second time I saw him, he asked my name. And so from that time on, he always waved at me and he was like, good morning, Miss Christie. Or whenever I was driving by, he knew my car, he knew my face, he remembered my name. And I just felt so seen, and like that is worth so much. I worked in the hospitality industry for so many years, and that was my job, to make people feel remembered and seen, and you know, just to be kind. I'd never wanted to read the Jamaica Gleaner, but I would often just give him $500 just for, you know, because he was there doing his job. But he made me feel very seen every time I drove past him. So I wanted to return the favor to him. Now I want to turn it over to viewers. I know by looking at my stats and comments that a lot of you are Jamaican expats who have moved to another country. I would like to know, how have you experienced this feeling invisible or overly exposed when you moved away to another country? Like, which one was it for you and how did that feel for you? And also, if you are Jamaican and you moved abroad and now you've gone back to Jamaica, do you feel like overexposed in Jamaica now? Like, I've heard that when expats go back to Jamaica, it's almost like they can smell foreign on you, and so they know. They know. I don't know. But I would love to hear from anyone who has moved abroad or like moved around, even if you travel lots. How has that been for you, feeling completely invisible or feeling overexposed? I think it's a really interesting conversation to be had. In the meantime, I would love it if you would like this video, subscribe to my channel, leave all the comments that you want below, and we will see you next time on Jamaica Made Me Do It. My name is Christy. Thanks for watching.